Hey guys, happy Friday. Here we are for our last book of the week for Books with Belle. We are going to read a book called Ferdinand. Belle is under the table. You say hi? Oh, sweet girl. So, we're going to read this book called Ferdinand. It's a very sweet book. The author is Monroe Leaf, and the illustrator is Robert Lawson. You see this little circle here, the Imagination Library, and this sticker on the back. So some of you might have gotten books with these things on the Metro House, like mailed to you. So if you have this book, you can follow along while I'm reading. Alright, so this is the story of Ferdinand. Once upon a time in Spain. Now we know, since it says once upon a time, that this is a fairy tale. There was a little bull, and his name was Ferdinand. All the other little bulls he lived with would run and jump and butt their heads together. But not Ferdinand. I just love these illustrations. They're so simple. He liked to just sit quietly and smell the flowers. He had a favorite spot out in the pasture under a cork tree. It was his favorite tree, and he would sit in the shade all day and smell its flowers. Ferdinand's a little different than all the other bulls. They liked a rough house, and he liked to be in the shade of the flowers, nice and calm. Sometimes his mother, who was a cow, would worry about him. She was afraid he would be lonesome all by himself. "Why don't you run and play with the other little bulls and skip and butt your head?" she would say. But Ferdinand would shake his head. "I like it better here, where I can just sit quietly and smell the flowers." His mother saw that he was not lonesome, and because she was an understanding mother, even though she was a cow, she let him just sit there and be happy. As the years went by, Ferdinand grew and grew until he was very big and strong. Look how they marked his height on the tree. He's 2 years old now. All the other bulls who had grown up with him in the same pasture would fight each other all day. They would butt each other and stick each other with their horns. What they wanted most of all was to be picked to fight at the bullfights in Madrid. This is in Spain. Madrid is the city in Spain where they have bullfights. It's like a show that they do. But not Ferdinand. He still liked to sit quietly under the cork tree and smell the flowers. One day, 5 men came in very funny hats to pick the biggest, fastest, roughest bull to fight in the bullfights in Madrid. These are big funny hats. All the other bulls ran around snorting and butting, leaping and jumping, so the men would think that they were very, very strong and fierce and pick them. Who do you think the men are going to pick? One of these bulls or Ferdinand? Ferdinand knew that they wouldn't pick him, and he didn't care, so he went out to his favorite cork tree to sit down. He didn't look where he was sitting, and instead of sitting on a nice cool grass in the shade, he sat on a bumblebee. Ooh, I think I know what's going to happen next. Well, if you were a bumblebee and a bull sat on you, what would you do? You would sting him, and that is just what that bee did to Ferdinand. Look at his eyes. Wow, did it hurt? Ferdinand jumped up with a snort. He ran around puffing and snorting, butting and pawing the ground as if he were crazy. The 5 men saw him, and they all shouted with joy. Here was the largest and fiercest bull of all. Just the one bull for the fights in Madrid. So they took him away for the bull fight day in a cart. Here he is in his cart, looking all sad. Did the men see the real Ferdinand? No, they saw a Ferdinand that got stung by a bee. What a day it was! Flags were flying, bands were playing. This is the city. And all the lovely ladies had flowers in their hair. They had a parade into the bull ring. First came the bandoleros, with long, sharp pins with ribbons on them to stick in the bull to make them mad. So that's how they get the bulls to fight each other. They have kind of like swords. They poke them. Next came the picadores, who rode skinny horses, and they had long spears to stick in the bull and make them madder. Look at these poor horses, all skinny. All of this for entertainment. We're poking bulls and we're riding poor, sick, skinny horses. Then came the matador, the proudest of all. He thought he was very handsome and bowed to the ladies. He had a red cape and a sword and was supposed to stick the bull last of all. The matador is supposed to be the strongest and the bravest. Then came the bull. And you know who that was, don't you? It was Ferdinand. They called him Ferdinand, the fiercest, and all the fierce, they called him Ferdinand the Fierce, and all the bandoleros were afraid of him, and the picadores were afraid of him, and the matador was scared stiff. He must be a really big bull for them to be that scared. Ferdinand ran to the middle of the ring, and everyone shouted and clapped because they thought he was going to fight fiercely and butt and snort and stick his horns around. So here's all the people in the stadium, and here's the bull. And so that shows you how big the stadium is if he's that small and there's that many people up here. Is Ferdinand going to do all those things? Is he going to butt around and snort and stick his horns? But not Ferdinand. When he got to the middle of the ring, he saw the flowers and all the lovely ladies' hair, and he just sat down quietly and smelled. He wouldn't fight and be fierce no matter what they did. He just sat and smelled. And the bandoleros were mad, and the picadores were madder, and the matador was so mad he cried because he couldn't show off with his cape and his sword. He cried. So, they had to take Ferdinand home. No matter what they did, poking him with swords, Ferdinand still stayed peaceful and smelled the flowers. So they took him home. And for all I know, he is still sitting there under his favorite cork tree, smelling the flowers just quietly. And he is very happy. The end. So from that story, I learned that sometimes amidst all of the craziness that can be happening in your life, you need to take time to sit in the shade and smell the flowers, and you can be as nice and peaceful and happy as Ferdinand was. Bye!